It's time to get started. So hopefully you guys saw the email that I had sent out that what we're going to do tonight. Chuck had this really good idea that we would just give a testimony about someone in our own lives who was a pastor that made a great difference in our growth and discipleship and journey with Christ. So tonight is going to be a night of gratitude, and I think and joy, because I really think that we need it. And it's been such a rough season, and it's a crazy political climate. And I believe that if we give a little gratitude into that, it'll dispel some of the darkness. So what I'll do is, Daniel, I had read this scripture last week to you and to Matt, and I just think it's so appropriate for pastor appreciation. And this is from 2 Thessalonians. Brothers and sisters, we must always thank God for you. This is only right because your faithfulness is growing by leaps and bounds, and the love that all of you have for each other is increasing. That's why we ourselves are bragging about you in God's churches. We tell about your endurance and faithfulness in all the harassments and trouble that you have put up with. This shows that God's judgment is right and that you will be considered worthy of God's kingdom for which you are suffering. And we do know that there's a lot on the shoulders of the pastorate. And for those that have come before us and have encouraged us along the way, it's great. It's a good thing to give gratitude for them. And that's what we're going to do tonight. So Chuck, thanks for your idea to do that. And we're looking forward to this evening of gratitude. So let's start with a word of prayer. Father, we just come to you this evening. We thank you for a respite from the difficulties of life. And we thank you, Father, for this great idea that Chuck had to honor those that have taught us well and to give gratitude towards them. So, Father, I thank you for this evening, and I pray that our time together would be so uplifting to those that see it now or see it later. For we are grateful for the servants that have poured into each one of us. And I pray, Father, that our time together would be so sweet to your ears. We give it to you for your glory. In Jesus' name, amen. Chuck.
Yeah. It's been said that we can live 40 days and nights without food, but we can only live 40 minutes without hope. And it reminds us of the power of relationship and the need to be involved in people's lives, to be encouraging them, challenging them, to be filling them with the hope that they see themselves as God sees himself, as vessels to be poured out to others as well who need to know him. And I'm a Luke 10 guy. I preach a lot out of Luke 10. That's where he sends out the 72. And they come back and they remark that they've even done greater things than they were sent out to do. They couldn't believe it. It's miraculous, supernatural kind of stuff. And Jesus then takes them aside. Nobody else takes them aside, the ones that have been participating in his mission. And I love this verse. It's one that's kind of become my theme verse, verse 30. Luke chapter 10, I can almost read it here, verse 23. Then he turned to his disciples and said privately, "Blessed are the eyes that see what you see. And for I tell you that many prophets and kings wanted to see what you see but did not see it, and to hear what you hear but did not hear it." Nobody was higher in the food chain back there in that day than prophets and kings. I mean, they were the Oprah Winfrey's of the day, the Dr. Phil's of the day. And yet Jesus makes this incredible promise to all of us when we engage, and the lesson turns out to be, if you follow it through, when we engage in mission work towards God's people, for God's people, as well as for each other, in other words, being in relationship with each other, you will see God lead you to an extraordinary life that'll be even greater than the greatest people on the planet now experience. So I think tonight I just want to keep it real and keep it real honest and transparent, and we can go as long or short. It doesn't have to be long tonight. It could be very short, or it could be longer as we just share about who were those people in our lives, those more than just prophets or kings, those people that took us aside and taught us and mentored us and coached us, who cared about us. Now, and I'm going to make a disclaimer here. well, I want you to leave spouses out of it for now. We'll just assume that they've been number one in your life. But we're talking about mentoring, learning, coaching, and type of influence on your life. In fact, they may be the reason you're in the ministry now today, why you're here. And I'll just share briefly, I'm here because of one man in particular by the name of Jim Moss, which most of us know. And if you don't, you need to get to meet him very soon because he is just turned what, 80? Yeah, so he'll be 80 this week. And he's like the godfather of the Church of God, if you can imagine that. And Jim has a presence that is unparalleled in our conference, and now in his later stages of life, he's taking a quieter, more backseat approach to his life, and he's letting the younger ones lead, I guess, which for better or worse. And I know when I first met Jim Moss, it was in my seminary class at Evangelical School of Theology in Myerstown, and George Spangler was in that class as well. And I never knew why I was supposed to be in seminary, even though I had been there for 4 years. I just couldn't put a handle on what I was to do, why God had me in seminary, and why he asked my wife and myself to move up from Lancaster to Myerstown to go full time, quit my job, and quit my career as a restaurateur. I guess I can say that. I don't know if that might be too fancy for Dan Masshart. He doesn't call them restaurateurs. He probably calls them cooks. I don't know. But so I went that first Thursday night of class in seminary. I decided to take this class called Church Planting, and I didn't know anything more about church planting other than probably some big leafy green thing. And as I sat in that class for the first night, it didn't take me more than 30 seconds to know why God now had me here. I could sense that through Jim, God was speaking, and I learned through Jim so much about humility, so much about. He was the first person I ever heard pray like directly to Jesus. You know, it was kind of like weird. You know, most people said "Dear God" or "Dear Lord," you know, but "Dear Jesus," that really caught me a little off guard. And I remember that first night he said to all, and there's only about 7 of us in the class, and he said to us, he said, you know, the reason you're here is because of those that aren't here yet, meaning the lost. And from that moment on, I was a Jim Moss follower, after Jesus, of course. And just really appreciated him as he was my teacher, he's my coach, my friend. And he had an unbelievable heart for the lost that continues to this day. And to me, he just is the reason that I'm here in the Church of God today. And so I want to give tribute tonight to Jim Moss as a great man who discipled me and inevitably helped me to become the church planter and multiplier that God wants me to be. Amen.
Amen. Really good, Chuck.
So that's a little bit of my story. I have 3 other what we call hero makers. I have 3 more of those, but I'll wait, see if we need them.
Okay.
So who has a story of how you came to somebody in your life that is mentored and
Disciple.
discipled and brought you to where you are today?
Tracy?
Tracy.
Go ahead.
Hey, Tracy.
Unmute.
Looks like you're being attacked by an Afghan.
There you go.
That's a blanket. That's a blanket, by the way, not a person.
It's an Afghan. It's an Afghan. You know, I know that. Did you ever have somebody in your life that you loved, but you really didn't like them too much? You know that there were certain things about them that kind of rubbed you wrong, and you could go to a word battle, but you'll never win against them because they always seem to be right. It's just, I think there's. Oh my! I'm sorry. Somebody's coming.
Getting his 2 cents in.
What's that?
He's getting his 2 cents in.
Yeah, it's two of them. Yeah. The person that one of the two people who mentored me through my spiritual journey, and then even through the seminary, the first person would be Dennis Hall. He rubbed me the wrong way, I don't know how many times, but he loved me anyway, and I loved him. But there were just certain aspects about his personality that didn't necessarily match up with mine, at times. But there was this greater love had just grown and nourished over the years, and I'm so grateful to him for his influence and his assistance in walking. If that's getting on your nerves, I will mute myself, okay?
No, you're good.
But anyway, I would say he was one of the first biggest influencers in my life. I'll never forget some of the terminology he used to use. He used to use like training yourself to think differently. And I just kept thinking, training yourself to think. How do you train yourself to think differently? You think. It just happens, Things thoughts come to your mind and stuff. But he shared with me about how you train yourself to think differently. It might not happen like in an instant. It happens over a period of time. One of his favorite lines, and he was a big Jim Moss fan. I know you know that, right?
Mhm.
He was a huge Jim Moss fan. And one of the things that he used to always say when he was encouraging me was to always preach to the one who doesn't know Jesus. You can be in a crowd, you could be preaching to a congregation, but you always need to remember the one who doesn't know Jesus yet, or the one who's just in their infant stage. You don't want to preach over their heads. And I remember being like that at times in my life, where people would generate terminology and certain thought processes that just were not in line with how I think. Not that I disagreed or whatever, but if I had to stop and look up the meaning of a word, then I've already lost the contact,
Yeah.
But so he was great with that. My other huge mentor, who was and still is, would be Rich Thornton. I know, Chuck, you want to be in there too.
I do. I want to be there.
but I knew Rich Thornton before I knew you.
Well,
and
that's true.
and Rich was literally my assigned mentor as I went through seminary classes, and so that relationship has grown, and he's a big old bundle of not only heart but wisdom that you just don't see it in very often. So he challenges me to help me think differently, and to over the years I've learned how to be more compassionate and sympathetic and understanding through both of these guys. So that's my story. I'll stick to it.
That's good, Tracy.
I still went on the team, Tracy.
Thank you. I'm there.
That's good. Does anybody else have someone in their life that molded them to be the disciple they are? Pat?
I would say, yeah, it would have been my pastor when I was a youngin'. I went to the Church of God, a Pentecostal church in Mobile, Alabama. It was a holiness church, apostolic holiness. And his name was Jerry Crawley. He was 5 foot and nothing. Little black fellow, really good, really good. And he always walked around quoting Deuteronomy 31:6. Be strong and courageous. Do not fear or be in dread of them, for it's the Lord your God who goes with you. He will not leave you nor forsake you. And he always drilled this into our heads. He said, no matter what happens in your life, God will never forsake you. And then I remember when I was 13, and he used to stand on the soapbox. He couldn't see up over the pew back in the day. So he stand on the soapbox, and he always drilled in our heads. He goes, two things you got to remember about preachers. You never trust a preacher. Don't carry a Bible or cowboy boots. Hence, I'm always carrying a Bible wearing cowboy boots, so you all know. But it wasn't that. It was he knew everybody had a purpose. He knew I was to go into the seminary. He knew back when I was young and I was to be a preacher because I always liked talking about God. I always liked sharing God. And then I didn't listen, and I joined the military. But he always sent me letters, and he'd send me going, God's waiting, God's waiting, God's waiting. So that the day I graduated seminary, I made sure I contacted him, and he got to watch it because he's a shut-in now. He's up in his years. He's 96 this year. And the only thing he said to me was, he says, "I told you so." And he said to me something that's really, really hits hard now. He goes, "Now remember, you've been given the sword of truth. Don't misuse it, because if you do, you might as well stab yourself with it."
Oh.
And it was a very, it's a very humbling thing, because here was a man back in the 70s, early 80s that knew I had destiny, but I wasn't ready to grasp it. And he never gave up. He just kept sending me letters. I mean, I can show you all the letters. I have all the letters. It's pretty funny. And then the day I graduated, he said, "I told you so." So, yeah, that was, somebody. And then now I have Terry Jansman. I can never pronounce his name. And I use George Jensen a lot. And then these two fellows, I know they're my age, but they have a lot of wisdom. Because I'm coming in from a whole different world. Same style of theology, but a whole different style altogether. And they said, you don't change who you are. Y'all be who you are, you be real, and you'll connect with the people. And that's what I try to do. I may not be all formal and, as you put it, a theological speaking, but I get God's word across. That's all I try to do. And that's what I was taught to do, just be humble and be yourself.
Hey, you need to meet, you know Dan Martin with Man's Heart.
Yeah, where did he go? He's on.
No, I'm dying to meet Dan. Trust me, I'm dying.
You
I'm hoping he doesn't feel like-
you guys gotta have to have a face off, a little theological face off. I put my money on you.
I put it on Dan. No offense, brother. I love John
Come on,
McDaniel.
Dan, define yourself. Defend yourself. You're
Unmute.
muted.
Unmute.
I'm never muted. I'm doing stuff around the room here, and I just hear my name being laughed at again and again.
That's what happens when you're not there visually.
Play
Yeah,
Mr. Franks.
Dan, do you have somebody in your life that?
Yeah. Just the reflection off of Chuck's forehead is too much for me to handle.
You're catching up, buddy. You're catching up.
I can't. Yeah. Well, I got a little. It's receding just a little bit, but yeah, I'll share a minute. First, I want to say that I really, Colleen, you kind of asked about, mentoring kind of stuff, but I want to say at the front end, I appreciate all the peers, some older brothers and sisters, and some, more my age. But it's been neat over the last, I don't know, how many years to get to know. I don't know all of you on the call as well as others, and some we've just kind of more recently kind of get in the chat like Pat and stuff too. But I've appreciated knowing Chuck for some time now. When you first came on the Evangelism Commission, I think when you first got hired, I think was back then, and it's been fun to get to know you. And Dave asked me out to breakfast years ago, and it's been fun.
Cheap date.
And is Dave here?
He's on, but he can't talk. I think he's in a car.
Oh, that's good, because I was just going to make fun of him too.
You can.
You can.
No. Dave, I forget how many years ago it was now, but that he called together a lead team. It was when I think Charlie Zahora first started at New Cumberland, and my daughter's here.
Hi, cutie.
And stuff. And we had, we've been in that group, and the group's changed a lot over the years, but Dave kind of called us together, and he's been trying to shepherd us ever since, but unsuccessfully. So up to this very morning. So, and I appreciate those peers that are a part of that as well too. So, but just a big shout out to sort of everybody, I guess, in a sense. It's neat to be a part of, a part of a team, a part of a family so to sort of all of you. Had a great relationship with my pastor when I first came to faith when I was in high school. This is up in Massachusetts. None of you guys know. He became a good friend to me. But at our church, Gene Hockenberry's had the most influence. Well, I don't know. It's not so much that he discipled me. He showed me all the practical nuts and bolts of the ins and outs, the everyday stuff, the stuff you would never learn in seminary. But that practical stuff. But more than that, he advocated for me, and he put himself second so that I could have more opportunities. He advocated for the church to hire me when there wasn't really even a job there that existed, and he retired before he would have otherwise, so that I could have a position and stay there. And so that, as much as I could say a lot of things about him and about that, just the example of his willingness to put himself, second, continues to shape the way that I want to think about ministry, about myself as well too. So that's some stuff.
That's really good, Dan. Yeah. Humility. It's big. Dennis Regetz, how about you? Do you have anybody in your life that you can think of that would have molded you to, pastored you, saw things in you? You have to unmute. There you go.
There was a guy that was the leader at Youth for Christ, young adult, Don Shank. He's out at Central Manor right now. He was a guy that really saw the first leadership and started guiding me in ministry that way. Wayne Boyer was my mentor when I got out of Bible college and started into ministry here in Washington Borough. He had just retired and moved back to this area, and we spent some quality time before he passed away. And more recently, it would have been Bill Shoemaker, who was really spending some time with me, and we had a meeting scheduled just a couple days after he had passed away. So I don't know if I really want to have a mentor. They seem to pass away. But Chuck and Rich have really been helping me through this discovering microchurches and how to start and plant and talk. And so I would say right now they're probably more the mentors that I have.
No, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Checks
be
in the
prepared
mail.
to hear news about Chuck and Rich going on to glory.
I know. It's your fault.
Thanks, Dennis. Thanks. Don't want to be on your hit list, man.
Aw. Daniel, how about you? Did you have someone specifically that came to mind that had molded you in your faith journey?
More than all time, not really. I've been in the desert for 40 years, and I came back about 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
So right now, I would say probably Matt Hornberger, actual pastor, and so he's educated. I can ask questions, but really, what I like with him, we can walk together, side by side. He asks questions, I ask questions, he has answers, I have answers, and many times none of us have answers. It's like walking on the way of Emmaus and trying to figure out things.
Yeah.
And it's big teaching. And Matt is like Nick in the sense that they come from the business world and so on. They like to get things done. They have they see time differently than I would say pastors would see. I mean, don't take it back. It's just another way to see time. But this guy wants something done, and we realize that now we should never finish anything, because otherwise we have nothing to give to anybody else to continue. So the goal is to start something, to make it ready for the next generation so they can continue start something else. So, but Matt is a great guy right now, since he's starting new stuff, I'm starting new stuff, and we try to put everything together. And each time we see each other, we probably have a dozen questions. Okay, how are we going to get more people in the church? How are we going to do this? How are we going to do that? And so it's somebody who wants to walk with you. He could do differently. He could have only answers. He could take it from a higher pedestal, or whichever you take it. I'm not saying that people who know more are not humble. That's not true. But it's kind of, for somebody like me who don't know enough and so on, if I only get an answer when I have a question, I don't have much of a tendency to grow. And it's kind of interesting to find out that if he does not have an answer, I have no choice than to find one. I have to do my homework, you know. If each time I ask a question to the pastor gives me the right answer, I'm done, I'm good. He did all the work, and eventually I do nothing. So it's kind of neat to not having answers, finding out that everybody is looking for answers as well. And I believe for a disciple, it's pushing for work, because otherwise we just know. I mean, I need something, I just ask. And if I ask, I receive, and you know, and I never do anything. I go back, sit in the pew, and kind of, oh, it's fine. Next time I have a problem or a question, I go and ask the pastor. And no, I'm glad the pastor does not have all the answers, because now, and then sometimes he asks questions. It's like, wow, what do I know? So I have to go back, I have to pray, I have to read, I have to study, and I grow more that way than any other way. So he can be a mentor. It's really somebody walking alongside. I mean, Jesus does the same thing, but this is the one I see, and the other one is the one I don't see, and I need both of them.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's so good. Yeah. Yeah. Rather than being spoon-fed, you're walking together and learning and growing. It's wonderful.
Can I add a little bit to that? Since Daniel's brought up the subject of disciple making, I just want to read a paragraph here from a selection called The Multipliers. And I've referred to hero makers, which is the hero making practice, disciple multiplying. The third hero maker practice is disciple multiplying. It shifts from sharing. You begin to share not just what you know to help others follow Jesus, but to also share your life, and you invest in the development of leaders who do not do the same for other leaders. We see this in the life of Jesus, as he spent 3 years with primarily 12 people. The way Jesus did apprenticeship is best described by the Koine Greek word, diatribio. Oh man, I'm butchering it here. Pat, you need to give me that word. Diatribio, meaning to spend time with him. Jesus spent time with the 12 and shared his life with them, and they in turn multiplied and met themselves into a movement of Jesus followers. They go on to talk about Jesus really only spent basically 75% of his time with the three, and it showed us how to really do disciple making. So I want to give another shout out to one of my people I think has been a great disciple maker, and I think we have a picture of him that we want to show that really shows the essence of true disciple making and his personality and his heart. So I think Colleen's going to try to share it to us right now. Maybe not. There we go. Mr. Ed Rosenberry, caught live in the flesh with an ice cream cone, something he has never ceased to like and love.
I know where he's at.
But Ed's been, to me, a great disciple maker for the faith community, and been a personal friend, and somebody, one of those individuals that you meet and you just say, wow, I came away with so much more than what I brought to the conversation. And Ed has such a humility and desire to reach the lost. He's all about mission and social, needing the social and physical and spiritual needs of people. And for me, it's just been a true example of Jesus and how to do disciple making. So I want to thank you, Ed Rosenberry, for being another one of the key people in my life.
That's
Thanks.
good.
Thanks, Colin.
Lisa Edwards, it's good to see you. Would you like to say anything in regard to someone that's been instrumental in speaking into your life?
There's been so many. I don't have like just one or two. I grew up in Christ UCC Church. Started going there when I was in elementary school. Ended up being Sunday school teacher, youth group leader into my early 20s, then kind of fell apart and fell away from church for a little while, but got my way back. And there's been numerous pastors and leaders that have, given me lots of advice and wisdom. I really can't, it's hard. Bits and pieces of different people, have made me what I am today as far as in the ministry, and never saw myself doing anything like this when I was younger. Never would have thought me, giving messages or stuff like that. I would have never thought that when I was younger, but I enjoy it. I do love it. I love, sharing, especially I seem to get more of the younger crowd. I think I can relate more like the teens, preteens, younger 20s, that age group. Maybe because I try to act like them. I don't know. But I seem to be able to relate, to kids, especially I do 8th grade camp up at Elijua every year. And I do the Bible classes. And by the midweek, everybody's calling me Mama Lisa. So I just have that, I guess, aura about me that the kids seem to like. So like I said, there's really no one person. There's lots of people that I could really, bits and pieces of people that have really, made me who I am in Christ today. It's not just one or two. There's a lot.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dave is listening. He just can't talk right now. And he had sent me a text and he wanted me to give a shout out to his person that has invested in his life is a man by the name of Phil Sturr. I'm not sure if any of you know him. He's a retired pastor and great mentor and spoke into Dave's life, I'm sure, for many, many years. And so Dave would definitely refer to Phil as his one special person that encouraged him and spoke into his life. And speaking of Dave, I got an email from someone who, Dave, you'll appreciate this. And this is what this email says after they saw that we were going to do this evening. This is from Jim Schaefer. And Jim Schaefer is out of originally Bear Memorial, which at Roaring Spring, where Dave was the pastor for many, many years. And this is what Jim said. He's now the pastor at Martinsburg Church of God. And Jim says this: I'm not able to join this evening because he has MTI classes. But he really feels that he should say that Dave Williams is that pastor for me. Listening to him preach Jesus' truth for 15 plus years had a deep impact on my walk with God. He was a disciple of the highest caliber. Thank you, Pastor, for coming alongside me and teaching and living the ways of God. So Dave, that's from Jim, and he's just so grateful for your influence in his life. And now he's a pastor, so that's pretty cool. Legacy continues, right? When we do speak into other people. So is there anybody else that's muted that would like? There's nobody else that's on there.
I got a few bad influences. Like when I think of Dan Mazhart. No, sorry.
Oh, come on.
Wrong conversation.
This
Sorry.
is a positive evening, a gratitude evening, not a negative evening.
That's actually one of the things that I like about Chuck. See,
Oh, no.
I don't get along with people that don't have a good sense of humor. That's why I get along with Pat Ferris off the bat so well, right? And
two peas in a pod.
it's fun. Yeah. I'd rather be made fun of than ignored, Chuck. So I'll take it.
That's great. I've had so many pastors in my life that, grew up with one for, he was there for 20 years. I grew up out of the High Sparrow First Church of God. So Billy Holmes was a big influence in my life. But, as far as the region, I wouldn't have the job I have if it weren't for Tom Lucas. I don't know if you know Tom. He's such a great encourager and supporter, of my gifts and calling. And so he had a great influence on me, and the guys in the office, the pastors in the office have been a real encouragement to me as well in regard to, the things I do and the calling I have. So, I'm just grateful for all the pastors that have around the region and over the years have been such an encouragement to just stay at it. And, because sometimes you all know when you're in ministry, it gets a little wearying sometimes when you have a calling in your life and things don't seem to be moving as fast as you think they should. But God has a plan. So that's an encouragement to all of you.
Hey, Colleen, thanks to you too as well. And some of you guys may or may not know that I'm not really big into like the I'm a pastor and you're not kind of deal. It's, I think we're all in this together. And Colleen, I don't really consider you any less a pastor than anybody else in that office.
Aw.
So I think we all appreciate what you do, and we know that it's not just the logistical stuff or the financial stuff or even the communication stuff, but we know that your heart's just as much as any of us. So thank you
Yeah.
for all that you do too.
Well, thanks, Dan. I appreciate that word of encouragement. Thank you. It's good. Chuck, do you have anything else you want to
Oh, I
communicate?
got 5 more people to go, but now I just hold off. But I think it's just so important, and I think it's hard to get these people in our lives. It's part of the. I mean, I know there's a lot of our pastors that are hurting, and
Mhm.
it's like, what can we say to them, and how do we help them move forward in having accountability and relationship and training and all those things that help that inevitably help the body as well as the kingdom. And so I'm not really asking a question, just making a sense of feel that I wish that those who feel they're traveling the road alone right now would know that au contraire,
Right.
God is with them all the way. And I remember, I can't quote the story verbatim, so I shouldn't probably tell it. But in one of my training sessions, I told about way back in the 200 years ago, one country in Europe decided that the next generation of children would be raised in that country without any physical touch. Meaning that they were never, from the moment they were born till death, able to experience the touch of another human being. Unsurprisingly, they found in this study, found the study that when these kids turned 20, when they were all thought that they turned, let me say it again, I didn't practice this at all. When they found out in this study that none of the children had reached age 20 as far as being alive, they all died before age 20. And the study put on the conclusion that touch is so powerful a human element, and truly to not touch, we will die in some form or fashion. Maybe not physically, but in some form or fashion. And I think of that now with the COVID virus and the shutdown and the seclusion. That supposedly alcoholic crime rates are skyrocketing now because of this separation. And I'm babbling, but I'm just crying out that I hope we can help our fellow brothers and sisters to find their hero makers as well.
Yeah.
And be a hero maker to others.
encourage connection with one another, so for all of us that have been a part of these conversations, if you have somebody in your neck of the woods that needs connection, that's for you to connect them either with us on these conversations or whatever, that you're not alone. I think that's our whole thing. You are not alone. We are in this together, and we have resources, and we want to help you to be connected to someone and be mentored by someone and loved by someone that I know in ministry, it feels alone a lot, especially now. And so you are not alone. Okay. Great. Chuck, would you like to pray us out? Would you like to pray? Chuck?
Yes. Father, it's good to come together. We are better together, and we just praise you for all of the great tributes tonight to men and women and children who all even now having major influence in others' lives, especially spiritual influences. So we just pray that you continue to strengthen our body, Church of God, and the church worldwide, and Christians wherever we are, to be continuing to look for the ones that we can lift up and encourage and give a hope to, and be part of seeing the transformation in their lives to becoming disciple makers and pastors and church leaders and church folks that just really want to see you, Jesus, reign on high. So we thank you for tonight. We pray for Nick as he and Steph come back to the area in the next few days, and look forward to hearing some of that, I'm sure, when they get back online here. So just pray for their safe return as well. And just pray that in all things that we do, we honor and glorify you. And thank you for this night together. In Jesus' name we all pray and said, amen.
Amen. Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend.